Merry meetle. So, there's always so much to do, isn't there? I'm going to do a few little posts today. So I believe that come what may, things being a little bit in the air in the future, from a being prepared sort of mindset, I think it's a good idea to make sure you have candle breaths, also sconces, literally in every room, and also goes without saying that they're placed in a spot and location where they can't be tipped over, they're secure, pets, moving floorboards, things like that. You don't want to cause a fire. But I think if you have a sconce, i.e. something to hold a candlestick securely or tea light in every room, should the lights go out or should there be a issue, you've already got it there ready to go. You're not, walking around room to room with a candlestick in hand sort of thing. Because, that's going to become undoable very quickly. And that goes without saying to slowly buy, a packet of tea lights or candlesticks every time you get paid, and just accumulate it into a box somewhere for that emergency. Outside of your typical, every now and again you have candlesticks going at your dinner table. So I thought I would share one of my... when it comes to sconces, I am actually going to make my own DIY rustic ones. I've got so much scrap wood now that, it'll be cool. Am I going to do tea light or candlestick? I might try and make it so I can do either on the one sconce. So I've just got to do a little bit of thinking about how I'm going to tackle that. But meanwhile, if you have wonderful old tables, which, coffee tables, gorgeous craftsmanship in the legs like this, that they just make the most fantastic candlestick holders. They're nice and big, they're chunky, they're sturdy, and what I've done basically, this is a 6mm wood bit, this is a spade, which is 22. I do have a 19mm. However, the 19 is just a little wee snug. Now you can actually buy, and I'm getting inserts for your candlesticks, which are around 22.5mm, which will be perfect for that. And when the cups go in, basically that will sit nice and firm. However, you can also get rubber grips for the bottom of your candlestick so they stay inside. What you don't want is a sort of bizzo. Now, when I did the 19, it was just a little bit too firm for these candlesticks. That said, I believe if you had more narrow candlesticks, that the 19 would be fine. I would start small, even probably practice on a piece of wood, not the actual finished item itself. Well, I should have thought of that before, but anyway, it is what it is. I did 19 and then I went over it with the 22. And then also in the second go, I actually drilled using a 6mm wood bit. I drilled the holes dead center down first, just so that the tip of the spade will actually sit in a bit nicer. I did get a bit of wobble, but that's because I have no vise. I'm literally holding this between my feet and then drilling. So on my list is getting vices and clamps. I need that for working, especially since I'm a one-person show, so one-woman show. So I've done 2, and I'm happy with them to be as they are for now. That said, once I get my cups in, then I'm going to sand them down and give them a paint job. What colour? I have no idea. I could do silver. Silver is nice and tall, or I could do just plain white. I mean, white, you know, would just add to the actual height. And the whole reason why I like using the legs of coffee tables is that gorgeous height. I like my candlestick holders to be nice and tall, even bigger than that. I mean, you could probably even, you know, big oompa loompa like that somehow. Even if you just got a ballast and, you know, got that into a ballast somehow. But anyway, neither here nor there. So I'm going to drill these two today. Another little, just as a little side note, I just love work like this. What have we done with this fake crappy stuff we have in society? This is just like, this is how good even the plyboard used to be in the 70s. This is the 70s, 60s. It was so much better even than the shit that we get today. But they had this gorgeous bit of woodsman work, you know, put on top, glued on top. So I just did a rough cut. I'm just going to sand off the edges, and I'm actually going to create a frame that I'm going to put on top, so that, you know, this literally just is in the frame. I just love that. I think it's beautiful. I love craftsmanship like that. It's just, and then I'll just give it a little bit of a polish and a clean up and a polish and see where we go from that. Will I paint it? I don't know. There's something about the old wood colour that I like. Will I paint the background to match the actual front? I don't know. We'll see. But I'm tempted to have it as is. There are corners though, so if I want to paint this background, I'm going to have to use a sander which has a cornered edge, and I wanted to get a round sander, but I might get a cornered one just so I can do these bits like that. Just a round one's going to be easier for, you know, greater planes of work, such as the deck and things like that. But anyway, so scrap wood. So basically the take home of this post is using bits of scrap to make your life easier, especially preparing for winter or lack of light if there's loss of electricity. Salvaging old table legs is great. Wonderful pieces of work like this can just make you smile. You can just salvage the pieces and frame them themselves. I think these pieces should be framed. We're not going to have them in our ceilings anymore, then at least have it somewhere as a reminder of the great work that, you know, our blokes, typically they were blokes that did this in the West. Also, ta-da! So I finally, this is literally paling. It's like not even 10 millimeters, and it's warped, as paling does do, it warps. But I finally just banged bits together just to create an interim shelf. I have some black flywire mesh, which I'm actually going to put onto a spring curtain wire, so that there's a mesh to prevent anything flying in, like flies, behind these panels that I've sewn up. And I just love it. I think they just remind me of the nice bits of the 70s. I just love this pattern. And there's a couple of old canvases which I'm actually going to paint white and then do some artwork myself. But I really wanted to have on top of the doorway just a bit of a dedication to greenery. And yeah, I'm really happy with that. So before, I had an old door here which was warped, would just bang with the wind, because the wind just comes straight through that freaking door, which I need to try and work around. I've got a few ideas which I'll share. But I've literally just done shelf brackets. I've put a bit of wood there just to hold up any weight. And yeah, this ridiculous window which is so warped because the whole house is tipping into the abyss. You know, I want to move my cat tree. I want to upholster my cat tree. I'm humming and hawing with whether to move it because I really want to build this up. I want to make my own workbenches and, you know, really get my little space organized. I'm thinking of workbench, and then in between actually getting a table, a drop saw table, and then having it underneath, and then when I go to use it I can just jack the legs up and have it flush with the actual workbenches, but meanwhile just have a workbench tabletop I can flip over, if that makes any sense. So it's one big work table. That way I can have this, you know, flushed away nicely sort of thing. At the moment I'm just using some storage shelves. Yeah. And I'm thinking of having my art supplies, my paint and, you know, acrylics and that sort of thing in this space because I tend to, you know, one tends to go with the other. I ended up getting my palette buster. I've got to put it together. I'm happy with the weight of it, but as you can see it's hollow. Once I put that together I'm thinking of putting a steel pipe down the center, and I do have a angle grinder. I can trim that pipe down if I need to, but it's a really good weight, so I'm excited to give this a crack and see how it is in my palette pulling apart endeavours. Now this is basically a Wonder Bar which Stanley Fatmax make. This is a generic version, Amazon Basics. I gave it a bit of a wrangle with to remove nails and use as a, and there's like a little bit of a bend in the centre to use it for leverage. Not a lot, like you wouldn't feel it pressing it now, but once you really put weight on it, pulling nail off sort of thing, you'll feel it. There's a little tiny one, but it was like a 4-pack, and yeah, I have used them all. They're great. And it cost me about $22 for the 4, opposed to like $35 for one Stanley Fatmax Wonder Bar, which I will still get anyway. I think it's nice to have a pair and a spare, if you like, with this sort of thing. I get nervous when I just have one tool, especially if I know there might be shortages coming or issues with shipping and that sort of thing, because it's like, you know, you start relying on something and you don't have a backup for when it goes wrong. But anyway, so it's a palette buster, my prying tools that I got. I do have a crowbar which is absolutely chonky massive. It's like nearly 1 metre long, which as you could imagine is not really the most efficient when it comes to busting, hey girls, busting pallets. So that's what that is. This is by Winmax, and that is supposed to be it in action and put together, which I will do a bit later. So last of all, I also created the same bizzo, a shelf top to put things such as my trays, you know, cake holders, baskets. I use quite a bit because I gather pretty much on a daily basis, and I just use shelf brackets, and I drilled in a strip of wood there just to keep the side flush. I might cut another piece like that just to put over here to first glue to the drywall, just to have it uniform. I don't like one side having something and the other side not having something, and then I'll drill it in. And whilst we're on the overdoor, I'm a big fan of overdoor storage. It's there to access, but out the way. It's not on your countertop. Do you know what I mean? So this is the bathroom. I need to reorganize my frame pictures because, of course, I've moved things around. But I've done another shelf over the door for towels, which I am actually going to get baskets for. I was trying to use screws, which were probably about 3 millimeters too long for the beams, and wasn't working. I ended up getting it right though in the end. But yeah, again, out of the way but accessible. I like. So I think it's things like that that really do make a big difference. Now it goes without saying I am going to sand down and give a coat of paint, but to me it's more important to have this sort of thing done before, you know, there's even less light, because we are now in Winters Samhuinn, which means daylight is just getting more rare and more rare, and then the temperatures get colder and colder. So the last thing I want to do is be having to do things when there's bugger all light, to do things overall during the day, and you know, so I really want to take advantage of that. So I'm going to do another recording, and this is more about food prepping, little tips. But yeah, so if you haven't thought about it, consider your lighting source, which doesn't rely on electricity or gas or of any sort, so i.e. candles, and think about where you will put them, and that you have a light source in every single room of the house, and yeah, of course, make sure it's safe. And if you have some old tables, or you know where there's some old tables that are tips, if you like, go salvage it. Keep the legs, they're good. If they're like this, they're gorgeous, and you can use them as nice, heavy, sturdy candlestick holders. Use a spade drill bit. You will get a bit of wobble. Invest in, I don't have them now, but I'm going to order them next week, some insert cups. But I do have an idea of how I can make some, but I'm going to have to have a bit of a look-see before I declare that I can make them, if you know what I mean. But yeah, so have a look at your lighting sources, old table legs, and making yourself up some sconces or buying them. Obviously it's going to be better if you can make them, because you save some money and put it to something else, like buying some extra food, or, you know, buying some extra bits that you can, you know, stack away. So that's it from me on my candlestick holders, and, you know, making life cozy for this winter, and practical and functional and accessible, but out of the way. Blessed be, and merry patch.